Hi everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Ed Peterson. I'm a Senior Account Manager here at FMT Consultants. I'm very pleased to have with me Jeff Fenn, who is the Practice Manager in charge of all of BI and development here, and he's going to lead us through today's seminar. But as a way of introduction, we have a number of people we recognize on the line, but we've got quite a few new people that are new to FMT, so I'm going to take 1 or 2 minutes just to introduce you to who FMT is. And then I'm going to hand over to Jeff, and he's going to give us the demonstration on bringing your Dynamics GP data to life with Power BI. So, there we go. All right, FMT has been around for 20 years, going on 21 years now, in the Southern California market, and that entire time we've been focusing on the Microsoft stack of products. We've added a NetSuite and SAP by Design practice as well. But Jeff's been with our company for many, many years. We have, well over 1,000 projects under our belt with many customers around, Southern California, the rest of the USA and Canada. It says 55 team members, but since I've been here, we've added quite a number of people. I think we're north of 75 now between our San Diego Carlsbad office and our Los Angeles office as well. So FMT is growing and everything's going well. I think one of the reasons we're doing so well is that for many, many years now we've lived by these 5 core principles, and that really drives everything we do here. So integrity, service excellence, collaboration, innovation, and passion is what we try to bring to the table every single day, and that's what we strive for. There's quite a number of differentiators for FMT. We try and live a methodology, and we call it the FMT way. We provide very, very broad service offerings to our customers so that we have experts that have got skill sets that cross over many different practices, and I think that's what customers are looking for in this day and age. We have our own dedicated solution support services team. We have one of the biggest GP customer support teams in the country, based out of our Carlsbad office and some people around the country. And then we have a very, very deep ERP experienced team that can bring years of consulting knowledge to every single project. We've won lots of different awards. Interestingly, we're voted one of the best places to work in San Diego, which is fantastic. We have a lot of fun here at FMT. We work very hard. I'm proud to say we have our own kegerator with some good Stone beer in it, and I am the account manager for Stone, so I make sure that always happens. We've got, we're doing very, very well, and I think we says we're unstoppable, and I think that's true. At the moment, we are. We have many features. This is a small smattering of accounts that we deal with. We've got, like I said, over 230 active accounts we're servicing right now, but with over 1,000 projects under our belt. We've worked with a lot of the who's who in the Southern California market and many customers around the country. So today's agenda, we're going to be finding Dynamics GP data. We're going to get into getting started with Power BI Desktop, and then Jeff's going to finish with the different ways to pull Dynamics GP data. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Jeff. Thanks, Jeff.
Hey, everybody. So my goal today is, and just to give you a little bit more background on myself, I've been with FMT almost 9 years now, and been working in the GP space for over 20, so I'm very familiar with all the GP data and where everything lives. So my goal today is to just try and give you some exposure into, how can I find my data from GP, where does it live, and then kind of show you how we can use Power BI Desktop to do some reporting on that. For the most part, I'm not going to really try and go too much into Power BI from a training perspective, because to be honest with you, it's pretty easy. I mean, I'm going to encourage you to get in there and try it out and just start making your own visualizations and your reports and dashboards. My goal is to show you how to get started with it and how to get at your GP data so you can start doing this on your own and start playing around with it and trying it out. And there's multiple ways that we can access the data. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my VM here. So the first thing I wanted to show you is, we're all familiar with GP. So for example, here's the sales transaction entry window. Now the question is how do I find where data is and that sort of thing? So there's a number of different resources. So the first thing I want to show you is just from within GP itself. If we were to just look at under Tools, Resource Descriptions, this gives you an idea of how everything is put together. So if I were to go look at the windows here, and this tool menu is off pretty much every menu in GP, so every form in GP. So if you go in here, you kind of pick what your series is, whether it's the sales module, purchasing, and then you try and go in and find that window display name. So if I'm looking for sales transaction entry, I can then scroll down through this window and look for my sales transaction entry window. So I scroll down here. See, sales transaction entry, and then this will give me a list of all the tables that are actually on that form. As you can see, there's a lot. GP really ties a lot of tables together. But for the most part, I mean, usually you can kind of just visually see pretty quickly usually what some of the main ones are. Here you have the item master table and things like that. So now let's say I don't know what this relates to. There's then another resource as well, which is under Tools as well, under Resource Descriptions. Go to Tables. Oops. Go to Tables here, and again, I can go in and pick my sales series here and go down and find, for example, my sales tables. And what this will tell you is, once we get down there, sales transaction work, for example, that's everything that is before you post it. So SOP 10100. So that's the physical name in the database. So the big thing about Power BI is they've really added the ability now for anybody to make reports on their own. But the technical part now is just providing the data. So once the data is there, anybody can make the visualizations. And what I'm going to show you is I'm going to start a little bit more technical, so please don't drop off because I'm going to show you some simpler ways to get the GP data here in a few more minutes. I don't anticipate this webinar being really, really long. I just want to give you enough information to get you all started. But let's just start and just jump in real quick. So the first thing you're going to need is, and actually before I jump into Power BI Desktop, the other resources you can use as well, besides this information here, is there's some great web resources out on the web. So I definitely advise you to go out and check out this Victoria Uden site. This will give you information about what the different tables are, as well as what some of the different values in the data columns are. So for example, when you're looking at document types, they're numbered in the database, so you actually, you may want to know what is a 3, it's a debit memo. As well, there's also a site called GP Table Reference, which literally shows you every single GP table, as well as what the fields are, so you can actually see that customer number is customer number, address code, and things like that. So good resources. Definitely advise to go out, bookmark them for yourselves. So once again, gptablereference.com and also the Victoria Uden site. And anytime you Google basically Dynamics GP and a table name, these sites typically come up. So to get started, the first thing we want to do is you're going to need Power BI Desktop. You don't necessarily have to sign up for PowerBI.com just yet unless you really want to start using the internet and the browser to view reports and also share it among your peers. But Power BI Desktop is really the free tool to develop visualizations and do that on your own. So basically, if you just were to go to the Power BI, the main Power BI website, and you scroll down to the bottom, because eventually, basically what it does here at the top is it tries to get you to, get started for free. Definitely get started. Sign up for it. It's free. It doesn't cost any money. Obviously, there is a pay plan part, so there's more advanced features such as the gateway and some other things and sharing and collaboration that are actually part of the pay model. But just doing your own data and your own visualizations, it's free to get started and to use. But if you scroll down on this web page, you'll see down here, Power BI Desktop, learn more. Click on that. It'll basically take you to the download it easy install. It's just basically a next, 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 and they'll go from there. And then also a couple other things just to point out. The other components here, Power BI, is you have Power BI Mobile. So once you get things posted up to PowerBI.com, there's apps available on the App Store on Apple and Android to access your dashboards and everything right through your mobile device. And Power BI Gateway, two different versions, but mainly the goal of the gateway is to install it on servers locally, and it will actually publish your data up to PowerBI.com. So, and some of it will be on intervals, and they also have direct query modes as well, where the data will be directly queried from PowerBI.com. So, and we can touch on that a little bit more later. So let's get started with Power BI Desktop. So I'll just launch it here. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to just text them in the question box, and Ed will let me know, and I'll try and answer them as we go. So basically, all we're going to do now is we're going to get data. And as you can see here, this is Power BI Desktop. Lots of different data sources you can connect to, and they're constantly adding more data sources. As you go down here, there's Azure's big in here now, and there's also lots of web services that you can get access to, and they're constantly adding beta connections to different services that are out there. But ODBC, Facebook, Dynamic CRM Online, those are all in there. But for our case, for GP, we're just going to connect to a SQL database. So what are you going to need from your IT? So from your IT, you're going to need to know what your server name is, what your database is for your GP company, at least to get started. So what I'm going to do is I know mine. So it's on my dev machine, so I'll just do dev jfin SQL 2012. And then I'm using the standard GP Fabricam database is what I'm connecting with. So now once I do that, I click OK. And what it's going to do is it's going through and it just basically listed every single table in that database. So I already know, just from experience, that the RM00101 is the customer table. So I found that by looking at the Victoria Uden site, right? And then I also know that I'm going to maybe look at some sales data. So I'm going to look at the SOP 30200 table and pull that in as well. And actually what I'm going to do is here select related tables. So what I did is I selected the historical transactions table for sales. And when you select related tables, it's actually going out. Oh, and it didn't work today, but it will go out and join in any tables that have foreign key relationships. For some reason that didn't work. So let me load. Oops. Now, when I connect to this data source, I can do one of two things. I can import the data, and it will literally import all the data, using compression algorithms into memory to work with. Or now they've just released doing direct query to SQL. So I usually use the direct query mode because it doesn't take as long, it doesn't use as much memory. So once I do that, it's now creating connections, creating the model. And now you can see I have the SOP 30200 table here. And all the fields that are in there. Now, as you can see here, these are very, very cryptic names, so you have to know what the fields are and whatnot. So let's just, for quick demonstration purposes, we'll just do, we'll grab customer number, throw that over there. And we'll do document. Oh, actually, we're just pulling customer name too. So now we have our customer names in there as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull over, let's just say document number, which I can't see because I'm sorry. So here's document amount. Now, the beauty of this is I go through here, I can change this now to a, we have all of our visualizations here. And again, I'm not going to dive deep into all this stuff because I definitely encourage you to get in here and explore all this. But I'm going to go ahead and change this to a slicer. So now with a slicer, as I click on each of these numbers will change. So as you can see this is changing. So I can find out, Americana has $6,000 in sales. And Astor, oops, I moved this on accident. So that's what the slicer does, but you can make these interactive visualizations. So that's its simplest form. And once you get it in here, you can come in here and you can start editing your queries. And if you're all familiar with some of the old Power BI stuff, there was actually Power Pivot and Power Query, which are kind of baked in now to this Power BI desktop tool. So I can go in here and add more detail, add more tables. I can go and change my column names now. So if I wanted to change, SOP number here and rename this column, I can rename the column. So I could change this to order number. And then it'll show up in this list as order number. So I can go in, really massage the data, massage my data sets, and rename all these columns and all that. So I don't know about you, but to me that's not really going to get anybody started who's a non-DBA type person. So what I want to show you is a couple of other ways to get at the data that's much simpler. So the first thing is, let me get out of here. I'm going to go ahead and start over. The one thing I wanted to show is anybody who's using GP, I believe 2010 and above, they now have a lot of views. So a view is a way in SQL Server database terms to simplify select statements and queries and combine them into a view so that you're not having to write joins and things like that. And one thing to note about GP table structure is everything is in three kind of phases per se. You usually have work tables, open tables, and historical tables. So sometimes when you're querying things like financial data, the GL, and things like that, you actually have to union in multiple tables together to combine it because the data moves from one table to another in GP. But what Microsoft has done is they've created all these different views now that make it simpler to actually access the data. So now what you'll see is there's things like account transactions. So this will be GL transactions. There's also, and if you just scroll down, it's all written out. It's pretty obvious when you're looking at the database. Purchasing line items, there's receiving transactions, sales transactions, sales line items. So for example here. And the one thing I wanted to point out on these is what they've also done with these views, besides combining all the open, work, and historical tables together, is they actually renamed all the columns to be more reader-friendly. So SOP number, so instead of that SOP NUMBR, it's SOP number, item number. So they spelled everything out for you. So this makes it really easy to actually query data from these views and understand what you're getting. So let's go ahead and start Power BI Desktop again. And we'll get data again. And this time, let's see, we'll go to our SQL Server again. Connect. JFN. And I remembered it was sales. I just do sales. It's going to show me all the sales related ones. So let's go ahead and look at sales line items. And it gives you a little preview of the data and what the column structure is and all that sort of thing. So now I'll just click load. And I'm going to do direct query again. So now what you'll see everything over here, all those columns in that view are now over here on the right side. And you can see it uses the little icons to show which ones are measures versus which ones aren't measures, things like that. So I can easily come in here and search for, let's say, customer. And there is customer. I'm going to make this a little bigger here. Let's see. So we'll take customer number, drag customer number on over. Remember, all this stuff is just very easy, drag and drop. And then let's go ahead and get customer name in there. So now let's say we also want to know what kind of stuff each customer's been purchasing. So we can actually go here, we'll go off the grid there, and let's go down and we'll find out what item numbers they've been purchasing. So we'll just scroll down here. So you see you have a lot of fields to choose from here. So we'll take item number, and then we'll do extended. I know the data pretty well, so I know that there's extended price, so how much it costs. So there's what they spent. We can also throw in quantity as we want as well. That's a good one. So let's do that as well. Okay, so now as we go through these, we'll change this one back to a slicer as well here. You know, I can look and see what each of these customers has been ordering. You know, if I want to make this more of a visualization, it's just clicking on it, you know, maybe making it into a bar chart, something like that. You can see what they've purchased most of. So very, very simple, very slick stuff. Then I can start throwing in here other things to slice it and dice it as well. We can get back down in here into, you know, maybe by territory. So territory information in here as well. And you can do a map, or you can just do a pie chart, for example. But we need our little measures, so let's get extended price back in there. Oops. Sorry, I'm having issues with my mouse. Extended. So test data is a little funky because it's 2, but I think you're getting the gist here. It's pretty easy to get in here and really, you know, just start picking your own fields. So all I did was basically base my Power Query stuff off of the views that are in GP. So I definitely encourage you to, you know, try and get a list of these. You can talk to FMT or your DBA, you know, get a list of what some of these views are, and it'll get you started. Now that's just another way to start. And also there's more advanced capabilities in here as well. So obviously once we get in here, we can, like I showed before, we can add the query, we can join more tables to it, we can rename columns, we can create new measures, for example. So if I want a new measure in here that was a combination of multiple fields, I could do that as well. So I could, you know, come in here and combine extended price minus extended cost would be profit, that sort of thing. So there's all sorts of manipulation and all that kind of stuff you can do in this tool. So that's terrific. But my goal today is to try and show you your options for GP. So let's dive into a couple other things and see how else we can get you started. So that was just using SQL views. So now I don't know, to me one of the coolest new things that they just came out with Power BI Desktop is they now have an analysis services connector as well. So with analysis services, it gives us the ability to actually hit cubes and hit tabular models on SQL Server. Now GP has what's called Dynamics GP analysis cubes. So what they have here is there's a it's on my other. Oops. There we go. They actually have a data warehouse. So they have a Dynamics GP data warehouse which has its own tables in it as well. And you can see it's basically dimensions and fact tables that are all in here. So this is the basis of the GP analysis cube. So we can query that as well and do that sort of thing. So let me jump in and do one of those. So again, we could just connect the SQL and stand by here, just got to get connected, and for some reason it's not connecting me. So go to our database, we use our SA password. So now what this has done, since I didn't pick a database, it'll give me all the databases I have access to. So again, I can use 2 or Dynamics, but here's the Dynamics GP warehouse. And here's all the tables. So a couple things to know. The thing about GP analysis cubes, which is great, and I don't think you've noticed this before, but some people, some companies have more than one GP company. And the thing is if you're trying to combine data from multiple GP companies, it's a lot harder to do just doing direct-to-table queries, hitting those views and things like that. GP analysis cubes, which is very similar to FRX as well, gives you the ability to actually combine data from across multiple companies. It will take care of picking up all the data, consolidating all into the Dynamics GP database here, and then give you the ability to query against it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to take a couple tables real quick. So we'll just take these sales, detail. So that's the fact table. Okay. And we'll do a direct query again. So here's the sales detail. It's already got, again, all the same type of data that we had before. A great way to start, but now this is data from all of your companies. So the one thing I wanted to show, which I didn't get a chance to show before, is now once we create something that we like, so I'm just going to pick customer again, and then we're going to do, let's just do some simple document amounts. I can't see. let's see, originating, let's use the stock cost, let's see, originating extended price. So this will show me basically how much they've been spending on these things. So now, the one thing I also want to show is if we create something that we like, that we want people to use, you can actually now publish them up to powerbi.com as well. So I've already created an account. I could save my changes here. We'll just call it, sales quick report. And what it will do is it'll publish it up to powerbi.com for me. Oh, okay. Didn't work, and I'm not sure why. So I can pull up one of these older ones to give you an example. So here's an example of a report I made earlier, just to give you another example where salesperson shows all their customers how much they've spent, as well as what the item numbers are, and then this is the states down below. So again, I can click on Publish here, save my changes. It's now publishing it up to the cloud, to Power BI. And now when I open up powerbi.com, as it's loading. So what's going to happen now is I'm using one of the data management gateways to actually connect to my SQL server that's on my VM. Well, it should have worked. Man. Well, I had things working right before this meeting, but the idea being is everything will be there. Your data sets would be down here below. For some reason, something's happened between when I started the meeting and now. Okay, so let me do one last thing I wanted to show you, which is all that's great, but now analysis services. So I don't know how many people have used analysis services before. So basically what I can do, I'm going to go ahead and create a new sheet here just to give you an example. So GP Analysis Cubes gives you the ability to slice and dice the data. So it's using that Dynamics GP warehouse and consolidating all the data. So all I have to do here, this is Excel. So I want to show you in Excel first, and then we can jump into how you can do this from Power BI. So again, I have to connect to my server. The thing with Analysis Cubes is it's all based on domain credentials, so it's just going to use my Windows authentication. And then there's 6 different cubes in GP Analysis Cubes: financial, inventory, receivables, sales. So let's go ahead and maybe pick the receivables module. And I'm going to do a pivot table report. So now, here's my pivot table. So I could come in here again and I can do, let's say I just want to see some aging information. So that's my measure. So we'll put that into the value section. And then we're going to need to select our customer. And then we're going to want to see our aging periods. So let me scroll this over a little bit. Oops. And then let's see our aging buckets. So we'll take our periods, we'll throw it into columns. So now really quickly I just threw together an aging bucket, by customer. Now, you may want to chart and graph this. You may want to relate this to other data like regions or salespeople. It's a little bit harder to do here because everything's just going to be a pivot. But that's where the beauty of Power BI comes in, because now I can go into Power BI, and what we're going to do is we are going to get our data again, but now we're going to get data from analysis services. Actually, let me start over here with a new one. So so now we connected here, so what we're going to do is we're going to do get data, and now we need to connect to an analysis services database. So we'll do dev SQL uplift dev. Now what they've come out with too as well is you can also import data or connect live, but what's the beauty of this is now they have the live connector. If you notice really quick, I was just making sure I was operational there for a second, but there's the Exchange connector for Power BI. All right, so we'll just connect to live data. So now, as you can see, I have two different analysis cubes. I have the AdventureWorks and I have Dynamics GP analysis cubes. So now once I go in here, I can pick whichever one of these cubes I want to work with. So I can pick receivables, for example. Click OK. And now those same fields are here. So now I can start doing charts and graphs and visualizations and things like that. So again, I can go ahead and pick my customer. And we can go ahead and pick their aging data. So we'll go up here to measures, receivables, aging. And then we can go ahead and do our aging periods. Drop that in there as well. So here you can see the buckets, and then what we can do is, change these to different types of things. We can see the different look and feel of it. Now, if we wanted to dive in more into the data, we can see, what salesperson belongs to each of these accounts. We can drop that stuff in there. And as you select each of these, you can see which accounts they're responsible for. So I can look at each of my salespeople and see which accounts they're responsible for and what their aging is and that sort of thing. So that's really the basics. It's about 10:45 now. That's really the basics of what I wanted to show you. Nothing too earth-shattering. I didn't want to get into the details too much of Power BI because I want to encourage everybody to get here and try it on your own. As we get in here, you can really play with the data and do different things. So I definitely encourage you to get in and play with it. Really you can switch up all these charts and graphs. When you're using the analysis cubes, it's naturally everything's going to be related. So as you put in different types of data elements and charts and graphs in here, it will all relate together and change, and it'll be very clickable and interactive, so you can see things change. And then once you're done, you can publish everything up to powerbi.com. So the other component I wanted to show you guys was in order to use the components, everything on PowerBI.com, you'll need to use the Exchange connector, or not the Exchange, the Enterprise connector, which is Power Enterprise Gateway. And this will tie in to your PowerBI.com. So I've set this gateway up on this server. So if I wanted to add another data source, the gateway doesn't have to be physically on the server that you're pulling data from. The gateway could be on any server in your environment and hit multiple servers. And you just add them in here. You can, once you add them in here, you say who the administrators are. And to see how I got here, by the way, that went right from the application on my server. But this is Power BI workspace here. But up here, there's a little gear. And under gear, I have manage my gateways. So when you manage your gateways, it'll take you to this screen. And here's where all your different gateways pushing data up into PowerBI.com, up into the cloud. This is where you set them all up. So with that, that's really all I had today. It was just supposed to be a quick little introduction. If anybody wants more time, I'd be happy to do a more in-depth demo and tailor to what you're looking for. Feel free to reach out to myself or Ed, and we'd love to help you out getting you started on this. But hopefully I answered a few questions somebody might have about how do I get started with GP and getting data into Power BI. Like I said, it's really, really easy. And I think Power BI is worth everybody's time to spend a couple hours and just to get in and play with it. And now that the GP Analysis Cubes is available and you can use analysis services, it's fantastic because they really included a lot of the data in that in the analysis cubes, and it's very, very quick and very fast to slice and dice your data. So I definitely recommend checking it out and playing around with it.
Well, excellent, Jeff. That's fantastic. I have been monitoring the chat channel to see if there were any questions come in. We don't have any right now. So like Jeff said, if you would like to reach out, our details are in this at the beginning of this presentation. My name is Ed Peterson. I'm the account executive, and we look forward to talking to you. This webinar will be posted on the website probably within the week. So if you do have any need to go back and have a look again, we'll get that up live on the website as soon as possible. And Jeff, I think with that, we're done.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.